Are you beginning to recognize the invaders in your life, the intruders, the invasions? Well, why don't we compare notes today, shall we? And I welcome you back to Free to Just Be. And I am Teresa Marie, the traveling ambassador of Chi. And I want to open yet another can of worms. I've grown to love worms because it's the worms that really get to you, right? And when we crack that can open, a lot of them just crawl away and dissolve. And once the can is open, well, you know what? If it just gets left alone long enough, all those little worms will crawl right on out of your life. Well, of course, I'm being a little bit facetious here, but yes. So this is Free to Just Be, and I am your host, and I have been sharing my dance of transformation for some time now. And today I want to talk about invaders. I'll give you the prime example for me today is grass. I I hate grass. It invades all of my flower beds, my vegetable beds. It creeps up past the borders. It grows in places that it has no business being. It's a pain in my proverbial arse, right? And especially out in the garden, I have no value in grass. Grass should have been kept the areas to feed animals. You know, animals are the ones that needed the grass. It wasn't us having it in the front of our house so we can, look better. Think about it. Think about the huge capitalistic idea that came out of grass as a landscaping uh, plant or greenery. Oh, we're going to green up your front yard and you'll have something soft to lay on and your kids can play in. And of course, really what it was shackle, the shackle to the lawn equipment, to the weekly distraction all spring and summer long. It's the feeding and fertilizing and keeping up with the Joneses. And this is what the Matrix handlers love. They love it when we're suffering, when we're enslaved. And grass in the 18th century should never have come into people's home areas. We should have been taught how to plant vegetables and herbs and beautiful pollinating gardens all around our house, which would have been far more suitable, not only for us, but for the planet, right? And so, of course, Mother Nature was teaching me, and kind of almost had me in the woodshed today as I was out there this morning at the butt crack of dawn. Yeah, it was slightly after the sun rose because it's in the 90s here in Middle Tennessee. And if you have gardens, we're not lazy gardeners yet. And when I say lazy gardeners, I'm talking about the natural way of doing things where you're building your soil up and you're making it more and more like the forest floor and doing hula culture and things of that nature so that you don't have to weed as much, so that you don't have to water. Ultimately, that's the goal, that we'll just let Mother Nature, when she reigns, so that's kind of where we're headed. But anyway, I'm out there and watering this morning, and I always do dual task. That's the program. You have to be productive, right? And so if you can knock out two tasks at once, then you are, the princess of multitasking. So I'm out there, and as I'm watering one section, holding the hose this way, I am bending down and I'm picking out grass that has come up through the wood chips, grass that has come up in between a slot of the cardboard that's under the wood chips. And I was thinking, man, I'm so tired of this invasion. You know, you're not even where you're supposed to be, and you're in all of my stuff. And I was grumbling and I was complaining, and that opened the can of worms. And Spirit started speaking to me, and of course, this has been milling around in my head for most of the day. So, of course, I came into my office and I had to do what a wordy one often does. And I wanted to define what it is that I've been thinking about all day. And so there were two words that kept coming up in my spirit: invaders and intruders. Invaders and intruders. I'm so tired of invaders and intruders. Now, I want you to think about the definition of these two words as I dive in and we start ripping apart this can of worms. So I'm going to put my readers on. Um, to intrude is to enter without permission. I rest my case, Grass. It's an unwelcome invitation into a space, situation, or conversation. Invade, to enter forcibly into a territory or space. This is very important. To conquer, occupy, or cause harm. Okay, so that being said, Grass is just a little bitty invader. I want you to think of all the invasion that universally humanity is experiencing right now. We have the invasion of our water. We have the invasion of our air. Our food is being invaded by all sorts of poison. The airwaves are being invaded by propaganda and subliminal messaging. Our schools are being invaded by doctrines that maybe we don't all agree with. Our history is being invaded and dismantled and twisted. We are being invaded left and right, aren't we? And that begs some contemplation, humanity. And of course, as the contemplator I am, especially out in our food forest, and notice I say food forest, even though right now there are just beds, and some of them look very traditional, and my yard doesn't technically look anything like a food forest. But you see, the food forest is right here. The food forest is right here. And so, therefore, it is. And I am just stepping closer and closer to it. And that's a significant way to change the lens. So, being the contemplator I am, after I defined the words, I had to look up some quotes about the topic. So, let's kick off with the quotes. Don't be pushed around by the invaders in your mind. Instead, be led by the dreams in your heart. Now, I want you to think about that aspect right now. I just gave you the example of how to turn it around. When you're in a shitstorm, when everything around you looks like, and again, those are important words, looks like, appears, right? And you find yourself full of anxiety, full of fear. You need to remind yourself what fear is. False evidence appearing real. Turn on the TV and you will see fear, because there's so much garbage, so much untruth, and it looks so incredibly real. I'm going to give you a real-time example. My husband and we were just blown away. I can't even remember what it is we were watching. There's nothing, in my opinion, very few things on TV worth watching, and it is something that we're still walking ourselves out of. But whatever app we were on, every 20 minutes, the same intruder came, and it was talking about how seniors can get 25 grand in burial benefits. If they're on Medicare, there's $25,000 that you never knew that you had coming. And then they show the incredible lie. They show the woman saying, "Oh, look what just showed up in my account." And the woman crying, "Just after my husband passed, I didn't know how I was going to be able to bury him. And then it came in," and on these lies. But the way they depicted them, the way they pulled the emotional strings, it's an invasion of your mind. And so many people are not aware of these illusions, of this manipulation, right? And this is the invasion that comes right into our home. All right. So that's just one quote, y'all. Okay. So don't be pushed around by the invaders in your mind. So here you are in the middle of this terrible storm and you think it looks terrible. All right. I'll use myself as an example. Y'all know I just left my matrix job. And right now, money is a little bit shifty. We're not really sure how this is all going to play out. And yes, the fear and anxiety and apprehension rises up to the surface. And then, just like I did with the food forest that is not fully developed out there yet, I speak of things as I wish them to be. Why? Because there's incredible energy and power in that little package called a word. And there's incredible power of life and death in this. True story. And you can continue to feed yourself with the invaders. The invaders will tell you, you need more, you need more, you need more. And what does that do? It rises your anxiety and your apprehension and your fear that you're not making enough money. There's never going to be enough. Or you can step off that cul-de-sac and you can say to yourself, I already know. And I'm telling you the truth about my life. 3 months I resisted. And God kept saying, you're not supposed to be here. Go and do what I told you to do. Go and do what I told you to do. But how will I pay my bills? And this is what but that's impossible. And what would I hear? All things are possible. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, right? And that is what the missing factor is. We have been so trained to be on that uh, poor train. We have been so trained that we don't have abundance, that we are never going to make it, that there's never going to be enough. That is fear. And why would you hear that over and over and over again? Well, that's because those dark entities, the archons, or even the Nephilim, or whatever you want to call them, it doesn't matter. There is energy that needs us to live in fear and the low, low basement vibrations. Fear, anxiety, apprehension, any negative thought, emotion, physicality, those are low vibrations. The high vibrations, humanity, are joy and love and compassion and gentleness and kindness. Everything that Jesus was. Those are like elevator, penthouse vibrations. So it's up to us to get out of the dang basement. And what do? They give us a computer. And so now we don't have to be brave. We don't have to contact each other face to face. We can sit, and they even glorify that. They even talk about it. Oh, well, they're just sitting in their basement. They're being armchair warriors, And that is what we've allowed, right? Okay, so let's move on. It says, there's more than one kind of home invasion. It's not always fast and violent. Sometimes we open the door and we let the intruders in ourselves. Ooh, ah. Welcome. Welcome to the kick in the stomach. Welcome to that feeling of nausea when that bitter red pill hits the bottom of your belly and you recognize for the first time, for the fifth time, for the 100th time that you accepted lies, programming, false beliefs, systems, and it really, really sucks. It's horrendous. But like any hard lesson, anything worth doing, humanity hurts at first. Dude, I remember when I was first lifting weights, I mean, I got up to like 236 pounds. I'm not proud of that. And that's a whole nother episode. And I'm telling you, the first couple of times I lifted weights, I thought I was going to DIE, right? And then eventually, I mean, I really enjoy lifting weights. I still do it. But it wasn't like that in the beginning. So this is what it's like when you first awaken. And the first hit, the first wave, it's literally like a wave. My best recollection of violent waves is Jones Beach in New York. Jones Beach, the beach you didn't walk out. I can remember as a kid, you'd walk to the end and there'd be like a drop off because the tide would be so violent. And it was not fun going to Jones Beach because the tide was so treacherous. It was, it would toss you around like you were nothing. And this is what often happens. We get knocked down by that first wave of awareness and then we want to deny it, and we want to, you want to say, no, that can't be true. And then, of course, the can't be truths send you into full on inquisition, and you start asking all sorts of questions, and you find yourself Googling everything. And, back in the day when I was a kid, it was going to the library. I would go to the library and pull out books about anything and everything that I wanted to learn about, right? And then you recognize that the poisoning of the food, the water, everything that you thought could not possibly be happening is what we are living in, right? And so we've allowed it. We open the door, and then you have to get to that second stage of taking full responsibility. But usually before you take full responsibility, this is what we do. I see that program in you. You're in that system. Did you know that? And then eventually you go into the next phase where you recognize, oh, what? I had 3 chubby fingers pointing back at me. Yes. And then you start seeing mirrors. There are mirrors everywhere. And I'm not even talking about actual glass mirrors. No, I'm talking about people that will reflect right back in your face the very things that you need to look at, deal with, decide if that's the way you want to be. And suddenly, the people you were pointing fingers at are now shining the light on the things that you need to work on. Like, for example, several weeks ago, my husband had entered into one of my reels on YouTube, and we were doing, and he willingly came in, and we were in the garden, and I made this little reel. Now, to my credit, I was holding the phone, so I was closest to the speaker, and he was about 10 feet from me. And yet, that was just magnification of an issue that I have. I heard it again very clearly today when my husband and I made a birthday call. I have a tradition that anybody that I love, I sing happy birthday to, usually the first thing in the morning. So that's the first thing that they hear. And happily, my husband is home today. And so we made this call to our ginger granddaughter. Um, and I happened to fall upon that. And I thought, oh, I'm going to play it and hear what it sounds like. Whose voice was the loudest? Amira. Because my MO, I've shared this with you before, when you're the baby of 6 kids and you feel like you're not seen or heard, your go-to is this. Talk, 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 talk. Please, somebody see me. Please, somebody hear me. Please, somebody recognize me. Now, it's taken me 50 years to figure that out. And now it's right there in my face all the time, like a reminder. But see, that is something that I allowed to help me cope as I was growing up. Now, with energies rising in my body and my mind and my emotions, and being aware and being fully present and wanting to stay aligned, that means that when something like that comes up, I catch it and I'm like, oh, I did it again. Wow. So then I just have to walk myself back and remind myself, no, been there, done that, don't want to do it again. So what other intruders or invaders do we have? Well, another part of this invaders is they're going to be out there always and forever. Our place of peace, y'all, is never a destination. It's resonant. We live in peace way down in here in our spark of God. We all have come from God. Therefore, we all have a spark of Him in us. And that, my dear ones, that's the place of peace. That's the place of power. Power and peace. How did that? Exactly. Oh, I had a beautiful morning session of Release and Revive. And about every 6 weeks, we do a meditation in closing. And once again, all of my students were just like, they couldn't even move at the end. And one student said, oh, I feel so good. That place of peace is available anytime, anywhere, but we have to choose to go there. So outside of us, it's going to be the storm. Outside of us is going to be every distraction, every invasion, every intruder imaginable is going to be out there, always and forever. So what do we do with that? Well, Gail Levine had a great quote. She said this: while the outside world was full of danger, I knew my interior, and I was certain I could take out any intruder there. So how do you take out the intruders in your life? You reframe everything. You take off your programmed lens and look at things in the light of God. You take every situation, every mind loop, and baby, do I have loop-de-loops. You're not good enough. You should have stayed at work. Look at the stress you're giving your husband. On and on and on. No weapon formed against me will prosper. I'm a child of God, and God came, sent Jesus down so that we could have life and have it abundant. I am his kid. He feeds the sparrow. Look, nobody's going to come in and eject the tapes that you allowed between your ears and reinstall other programs. That is up to you. That is up to me. Okay? What else did I find about invaders and intruders? Well, adversity. Adversity is always unexpected and unwelcome. All right, I'll give you another example of the mind intruders. I'm out there this morning, like I said, watering my garden, about 2.5 hour job. And all I could see for the first hour was the things that are not going well. The grass was driving me crazy. The grapes are just like wild. The beans, the pole beans that we planted the wrong ones. Pole beans are tough and they're not that flavorful. And man, do they grow abundantly. And they're the wrong beans. And so, having tried them 4 or 5 different ways, we know that we don't like them. Big mistake. But what do we have all over the greenhouse? Pole beans. So I was looking at the pole beans. I was looking at the plants that look like they're dying out, and on and on. Intruders. Loop-de-loops. The program of lack. You can't. You can't grow vegetables. You can't have abundant harvests. These are the invaders. And so I had to turn it around. So what did she say? Adversity is always unexpected and unwelcomed. It is an intruder, a thief. But I love that word. I love that word. But God. But in the hands of God, adversity becomes the means through which his supernatural power is demonstrated. I'll give you another real-time example. I've told you a couple of days ago that I've been observing my husband, and I can see his anxiety and apprehension because now I'm home and we're down in income. And he is the provider and the protector, and he's the manly man. And sure enough, he actually mentioned it today that, what he's got on his head is finances. And I know that this situation that looks adverse is going to absolutely knock my husband's socks off. God is going to wow him so much. Do I know how? Do I know when? I do not. But I know my God. And my God is Jehovah Jireh. And he is our provider. And it's not just our needs. It's extravagant. And that, you watch. I'll do an episode when that happens. What else? So, the reason Gail, while the outside world was full of danger, she knew her own interior. That is the key. Do you know yourself enough yet? Have you identified your patterns? Do you know your cul-de-sac mind loop-de-loops? You see, people don't understand that as you start unpacking who you are, what's a program and what's really not you, what you've been doing as just rote habit that you don't even like, and you start peeling that back, then more and more of you shines through. And you begin to know thyself. And you have to know yourself fully, consciously, before you're ever going to experience Christ consciousness. And we're like the practice, right? You know yourself, your interior, your home so well that when one of those loop-de-loops comes up, now you have that tool belt. I've talked about the tool belt. I think I just need to put all my tool belt shows together and make it a little package, right? Because there's lots of tools that are very valuable in this awakening dance of transformation. And one of them is identifying your weak spots, knowing what they are, and then having your own weapon. And one of my favorite weapons is taking whatever that thought is and completely saying the opposite, generally out loud. You're never going to grow vegetables. I grow the most abundant. I have a food forest. You see how this works? And then in closing, I really like this quote by Maya Angelou, who was poet laureate for a while. There is a place in you that you must keep inviolate. In other words, nobody can violate that spot. A place that you must keep clean. A place where you say to an intruder, to an invader, back up. Don't you know I'm a child of God? I love that. I absolutely love that. So there are many, many invaders and intruders in this adventure that we call Earth School. Are you prepared to meet them? You know, when I was in the prepper community, one of my favorite drills that we would do was at home. And it was what we would do if our home was being invaded. And can you walk around your house in the dark in a rapid fashion? Can you remember where your pistol is, your rifle is, where you've stashed them around your house? Can you grab them? Can you protect one another? It's the same thing in the non-literal form. It's not somebody pounding on your door, although it's uber important that you're able to do all of those skills as well. But it's when that thought comes. It's when that mind adversary comes. It's when the situation with your finances comes. It's when your kids haven't called for months. What do you have in your tool belt to protect yourself against those mental, emotional, and physical intruders or invasions? It's definitely worth opening the can of worms in your own life because it will make you successful and it'll propel you along your ascension journey in a much more rapid fashion. And on that note, one of the invaders, one of the intruders, now I'm going to close with a literal one. Oh, and it would probably annoy the crap out of my husband right now, but I'm going to speak it because to me, it's the absolute truth. My husband went out to mow the lawn, and my husband he is the king of resource. He is the most resourceful man I know. Now, I am the type of person that I'm a Goodwill girl, but if I'm going to bring 5 things home from Goodwill, then 5 things are out of here. That's how I've operated. And then, of course, there are the days where I'm like, oh, what happened to, you gave it away, remember? Okay. And my husband's the reverse. You never know when you're going to need this. Now, he was brought up by a dad who lived through some really rough financial times, so I understand. Back to the lawnmower. So our lawnmower is about 12 years old, and it was bought used, and it has been rewired and put together, and the only thing that it has not been used on it is duct tape. Okay. And every season, my husband keeps it going. Now, truth be told, that same little tractor with the blade, with the deck removed, is perfect. It's perfect for me because I can put my lawn wagon right on the back of it. I've done it before. And I can go all around our property doing my task, moving compost, moving wood chips, doing whatever. I'm moving rocks, right? And that's my vision, that little lawn tractor will be mine. And the other part of this is my husband works his butt off. He is an incredible work ethic, faithful, reliable, disciplined worker. And that means here too. And he puts in a lot of effort in our yard. And I've been telling him for about 2 months now that I see him on a brand new lawn tractor. And I tease him. I'm like, do you want orange or do you want green? You got to tell me because we need to zero it in. And I keep telling him we need to image in what we want to manifest because God is our provider. He knows we need it. This is going to be the wow moment. And I am maybe even prophesying because he went out to mow the lawn today. And what it's been doing the last couple of weeks, it's cutting uneven. It's shooting a lot of grass everywhere, which of course I'm going to rake up and use because we use everything. I am trying to, no, I'm not trying. I am resurrecting our soil. Everywhere there's a bed, there's layers and layers and layers, right? So all of that's good stuff to me. And I was telling him last week, you know, the time that you spend jury rigging, getting under that tractor, jacking it up, and fixing it, and uh, putting extra bolts in to hold things together, all that time that you have spent is time away from your life. And I so appreciate all these grass clippings, but look how many hours it takes me every week to collect these clippings. So image in with me the lawn tractor with the bag. So when it's full, you can just drive right up to the collection site of the 3-bin compost area that you just built for me. And picture your wife on her lawn tractor with the wagon behind, waving to you. See, you see how this works. So today, zero in on the things that intrude and invade your vision of who you want to be, of who you are, that you're walking towards. You're actually walking back in to that spark of God and start using God's language and speak things right into existence. Oh, she's on this prosperity. No, I'm not talking about, I'm I am not a bougie girl. I I don't have diamonds. I fashion, all of that stuff. The only time I worry about that stuff is when I'm going somewhere where I'm quote unquote expected to look a certain way. Otherwise, you know what? That to me, that It's not a big deal to me. Did I try that kind of stuff? Have I dyed my hair? Oh, yes, yes, yes. But none of that. No, no. But it's the word. And if he says he's my provider, he's my provider. And if he says to ask, seek, and knock, and then you'll get answered, you'll find the answer, and the door will open. Call me a fool if you want. I believe it. And I tell him every day, help my unbelief. And this is how I'm evolving. Maybe it'll work for you. What do you do when the invaders come in? What do you do when your life is flowing and you get an intruder? Something to think about. And I wish you, no, I don't wish you, I pray that you have the greatest health and the most vibrant energy. And of course, I hope you have peace.